Hey everybody, Simon Townsend. I hope you are well. Just wanted to spend 5-10 minutes talking to you and showing you some new Marketecture slides that we've got. 3 things going on at the moment. Number 1, we are updating the look and feel of our corporate deck. Number 2, we are updating the story of that corporate deck. And number 3 are some of these slides here, which start to look at some of the Marketecture diagrams that we commonly use in marketing, sales, pre-sales, and also advanced services. So I'd like your feedback on some of them as I run you through my version of this story. Like your feedback on the story as well, in fact. But also I've put into here some additional slides that validate what we're talking about, and these come from a recent survey that ESG carried out, an analyst firm in the US, who did a survey on VDI and desktop as a service. The results came in just before shelter in place and lockdown started. They're actually going to do a second phase of this survey to see whether people's answers have changed or whether they're going to change what they're deploying. But I think you'll see that some of these statistics and some of these results actually provide very good data points of what we want to talk to our customers about when we're introducing iGel in particular. So with that, let's kick off. Windows in the cloud, but what about the endpoint? Lots of talk at the moment around the benefits of putting Windows 10 into the cloud onto either a on-prem VDI platform or probably more relevant now, a desktop as a service platform. By putting Windows 10 in the cloud, it's easier to manage, it's easier to update, it's easier to secure, it's easier to roll out to your users, particularly in a time like work from home. It's also easier to roll out new applications and do application testing. It's closer to IT, it's typically single image management. It's just a lot easier and a lot more cost effective to deploy. Having Windows down there on the endpoint, if it's Windows XP, if it's Windows 7, it's out of date, out of support. If you haven't done your Windows 10 migration, you're going to have to spend millions of dollars trying to do that migration. And even when you do get to Windows 10, you've then got Windows as a service to worry about, which is Microsoft are updating Windows every 6 months, which means PCs are constantly updating. It also means that IT need to worry about making sure that those PCs are patched, and hence you have to go through this whole piece of Patch Tuesday. And again, very difficult at the moment to keep endpoints running Windows up to date and patched, particularly when they might be sat in the home office or moving forward just sat anywhere. So loads and loads of great reasons of moving Windows 10 to the cloud. Backed up, in fact, by the respondents from the ESG survey. When asked, why did you go to VDI desktop as a service? How did you justify it to the business? The number one reason was IT efficiency. We do not want IT spending any more time, any more money on managing endpoints. People in IT should be focused on digital transformation and trying to improve business productivity and deliver against the bottom line. Not worrying about, are all of my machines patched? Are all of my machines still working? Are all of my Windows machines still up to date? Second reason why people move to VDI desktop as a service, security and compliance. Worried about endpoints, worried about vulnerabilities, worried about machines that aren't being patched, and thirdly, to try and save overall cost. It's exactly the reason why people are looking at VDI and desktop as a service. Second piece, our second data point from the survey, 52% of people that were running VDI and desktop as a service moved to VDI and desktop as a service because of the challenges of managing Windows 10 on the endpoint, because of the challenges they saw coming with the migration, or because of the change in how Windows is now being deployed. Again, both data points validating why people are looking at VDI and desktop as a service. When you start to look at the desktop as a service solutions that are out there, we know that Citrix have dominated this market for the last 15, 20 years. We know that Citrix have now been in this space probably for the last, VMware have been in this space for the last 10. And we know that both Amazon and Microsoft with WVD and Amazon Workspaces have come in and are now deploying desktops significantly easier than ever before. Citrix and VMware have had on-prem solutions for quite some time, but also now have technologies that can sit in the cloud. They also have DaaS solutions that you can go and get hold of. Citrix and VMware are also adding functionality and value on top of Microsoft WVD. But in short, people are starting to look more and more at desktop as a service opposed to VDI because of its benefits. And the benefits of moving to VDI are also very, very clear. Number one, it's cheaper. You're only really paying for what you consume, particularly with Microsoft and Amazon Workspaces. That is definitely true. Even more so when you start to look at some of the payment models in place by someone like Amazon, even more so when you look at things like Windows Virtual Desktop and the multi-win functionality in WVD. Also, at a time where organizations had to move people to work from home quicker, the elasticity of the cloud means that obviously people can scale up and scale down significantly easier. It's also arguably greener than running on-prem VDI because you are only paying for what you consume, and you can ultimately just turn on resource and turn that resource off again. Again, a number of items backed up by the recent ESG survey. Why are people looking at moving from VDI to desktop as a service? Because they want to simplify it even further. Moving to VDI was far easier to manage than moving to than traditional desktops. Moving to desktop as a service from VDI, significantly easier than ever before. The ability just to be able to go on to a desktop as a service and switch on a PC. Other reasons, more supportive of sustainability initiatives and also aligned to the overarching fact that people want to move to the cloud for either security, cost or efficiency benefits. So then what happens about the endpoint? We've put Windows into the cloud. We've moved to VDI and or desktop as a service. We're getting all of those benefits. Why would you want to put Windows back on the endpoint and double the amount of management that you're having to do? You've just spent that money and invested the time in VDI or desktop as a service. The last thing you want to do is then turn around to the business and say, but we've still got to manage and patch Windows on the endpoint. And that endpoint is still a concern even for those people that have gone to VDI and desktop as a service. Again, another data point from the survey. Only 35% of those people surveyed would allow any device to connect into their VDI desktop as a service environment. What does that mean? That means that the remainder of those people are still very much concerned about the endpoint. So even though they're deploying VDI and desktop as a service, they are still concerned about what is running on the endpoint. And in fact, it needs to be a corporate device, or it needs to be a device that has at least got some level of management, and so IT can have visibility or at least apply policies to it. And I think this is quite an important data point, because I think it speaks perfectly to why you might want to consider putting IGEL on your endpoint. Significantly easier to manage. Instead of one person managing 250 PCs, you've now got one person who can manage tens of thousands of devices. Significantly more secure. It's a Linux read-only operating system. We all know the benefits of that. And it's also a smart investment because it's actually able to be installed and repurpose existing hardware, meaning you don't have to rip and replace when you want to move to the latest and greatest cloud workspace. We know all of this. I think this slide summarizes that quite perfectly. Install IGEL, not convert, install the IGEL operating system on those endpoints, extend the life, save yourself money, save yourself time, be more efficient, align with green IT sustainability initiatives, and allow your organization to accelerate their deployment of cloud workspaces. How do we manage all of that? Very simply, we've got something called the UMS. It allows us to have very granular control and apply policies and configuration settings down to all of our devices, tens of thousands of devices, all at the same time. And importantly, allows us to make configuration changes and shadow those environments as and when we need to. If I'm an organization who suddenly wants to move from a Citrix on-prem solution to a Citrix with WVD solution, I don't need to visit all of those endpoints to reconfigure them and point them to that new environment. If I do need to patch or update an endpoint, it's very easily done with the UMS. And if I need to remote support a user that might now be working from home, very easy to do with the IGEL solution via the shadowing option. If I want to go into a little bit more detail, I can have a conversation about where that management platform from IGEL sits. Yes, it can sit on-prem. Yes, it can talk to devices that are both on the local area network, but also devices that are remote. Alternatively, as many organizations are doing now, they're putting the management of IGEL actually up into the cloud. And in fact, it could sit in the AWS cloud, it could sit in Azure, it could sit alongside what you're doing from a Citrix and a VMware point of view. Going into a little bit more detail, this slide really starts to show how does that communication take place and what are the components of the IGEL solution. Not talking about Workspace Edition versus EMP, but just laying out these are the components that are required, and this is where the communication flows take place. Demonstrating that the IGEL operating system has got the ability to talk directly to any one of those cloud workspaces via a remoting protocol, but from a management point of view, talks via a secure channel up to something we call the IGEL Cloud Gateway, which could sit in your DMZ or could sit in the cloud, which then allows secure communication back to that UMS, meaning that from a single pane of glass, I can manage devices that are anywhere in the world. Anyway, those are the slides. I've tried to keep that as short as I possibly can. Look forward to your feedback and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.